All right, welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the user settings of Edius. And at the end of my last tutorial, I was suggesting that it would be important not to skip this lesson because it would be helpful to make sure that all of your settings are identical to mine as we go through these tutorials so that we would be on the same page and everything I showed you would work on your computer as well. Well, as I have done some prep for this particular tutorial and gone through the user settings, I've come to the conclusion that most of the settings that come by default in Edius 8 are pretty much the way that I like them. There's a few that we would like to change, but in the end, those settings can also be changed down here in the timeline, so we can make sure that you've got that set properly to match the type of operation that I demonstrate for you in tutorials down the road. So I think it would be safe to say that you could skip this lesson if it's not of particular interest to you, or at least keep it in mind for a reference tutorial if you should ever want to find some clarification on what some of these user settings do and how they can change the way your program works. All right, so that being said, let's forge ahead with our tutorial on the user settings of Edius. They are found up here in the menu tab under settings. But let's take a look at user settings, and it probably will open up looking something like that. You can open up the applications tab with the down arrow there, and let's start going through these. The background job, having this checked allows you to have a little bit more real-time playback as you're editing your videos, and so I like to have this checked. However, it is good to know about this setting and how it can be shut off if you would like to have some other tasks running in the background while you are doing your editing on the timeline. Match frame. This is a feature that allows you to find clips. It's kind of a universal feature that runs across all editors. I think in order for it to really work well, though, it has to have your clips have to have time code, and a lot of digital media these days doesn't have the time code on it, so it doesn't always work as well as you might think. But it is available for you there, and you can set different ways in which the feature works here under user settings. All right, here, recent clip. This gives you the option of being able to take a look at the last few clips that you've loaded into your play monitor. And right now it's set to 5. I think I might bump that up to 10. Show thumbnail. Yes, that's fine. And save Windows positions. Good tooltip. That's handy to have, especially as you're learning Edius. Create waveform cache when registering clip. This is good to have checked. It'll keep a memory of your waveforms each time you start up your project. It won't have to recreate those. And I think all of the rest of these are fairly normal operations, the way they come by default. Project file. Here is a place where you can determine what will be your default drive to save projects. And each time you start a project, you can also make that setting. You won't have the dialog box that popped up the first time you ran Edius. That's just to get you started. But when you start a new project, you will be able to determine what hard drive you want to save that project to. But here is one that you can set that will always show up as the default drive of where you want to save projects. You can change the default name that will be saved if you don't name it to a unique name from Untitled to something else. Each time you start Edius, it's going to show you a list of the most recent projects that you have been working on, and here you can determine whether that is on or off, also how many files you'd like to see. And I'm going to try and up this and see what happens. I don't know if it'll accept 20 or not, but I really do like to see the history going back 6 months or so, and not have to do a Windows-wide search for projects. So we'll see if it takes 20. Edius will do continual backups in the background of your projects, so that if in the rare chance that your system crashes, you can always load up the program from one of these backup files and maybe only lose, well, right now the way it's set by default, it's going to save every 3 minutes. So you are never going to really lose that much work. if you just leave everything by default. I think I'll make a few changes here. Some editors prefer to have the backup destination to be something other than the project folder. And that way, if it's your hard drive that's failing that causes the crash, the backup of your project is going to be on a different drive, and you will be able to just simply load up the project. You might be missing some of your media if a lot of your media has been saved to that hard drive, but at least you'll have your project folder, and it's just a matter of finding your media from other backup drives that you have and bringing them back online. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to select a different folder. We can now browse through our hard drives. I'm going to choose something other than my project drive. Let's maybe use Frank's hard drive, and let's make a new folder. Call it Edius Backups. How many files? Here you can determine how many files you want to save in this backup. What this means is that here by default, Edius is going to save your project every 3 minutes to this backup destination. So what it means is that you, at any point in time, if you decide that, oh, I've just gone in a wrong direction here, I just want to go back and start where I was at, 30 minutes ago and pick up from there, well, you could go to your backup files and choose, one of these backup files that would have been saved, a half hour ago. If you only had 5 backups here and it's saving every 3 minutes, well, then, of course, you're only going to be able to go back 15 minutes. Happy medium here. I think 10 files is fine, but what I would probably do is change the interval of backup to be more like 10 minutes. And having it set like that, I'm at any point in time going to be able to dig up a history going back 100 minutes in my edit time. And I think you should be safe there. Autosave. The destination project folder is fine on that. What this is a little bit different than a backup. It's going to just auto-save your project as though you're doing a Control-S in a word processing document and saving your work where you are at that point. If you're not doing Control-S every once in a while, and that's not a bad habit to get into, if you're not doing it, Edius is going to do it for you, and the way I have it set here is going to save to the project file. That way, again, if you should have a crash, the next time you go to start Edius, it's going to say, looks like we had a crash. Do you want to start the last project where it was the last time we saved it? And that's always nice. Actually, Edius is quite stable, everything being equal. If you've got a solid system with good hardware and you've got it set up properly and you don't have a lot of conflicts running in the background or malicious spyware and that kind of thing happening in the background on your computer, Edius does run quite stable. All right, proxy mode. This refers to when you're working with material, maybe some of the new RAW formats or red material, or maybe you're working in multicam where you've got a lot of layers and a lot of different cameras working at the same time on your timeline. You might want to set things into a proxy mode so that the images that you're seeing in your preview are low resolution because they're working with duplicated files that are at a very low resolution, just allow you to make the edit. But in reality, when you go to export the program, it's going to use the real files and give a nice, clean, high-quality render and export. Automatically generate proxy. Now, this does not mean that every time you start a new project that it's automatically going to generate proxy clips. What it means is that if you choose to go into the proxy mode, it's going to start automatically generating, but only if you choose to go into the proxy mode. All right, timeline. I don't know if we need to go through all of these. The way that they come by default are pretty solid and work well, I've found over the years, and is indeed probably reflecting the way most Edius users have decided they like things to work. They're kind of going with the popular vote here, I believe. Maybe just point out a couple of things. The wording here on this first one, when you're placing a transition, like maybe a dissolve in between 2 clips, it's asking, do you want to extend clips when applying transition? And the wording there, I think, is just a little bit confusing. It's not saying, do you want to make your clips longer? For example, when we place a dissolve here in between these two clips, you would think the way it's worded when it's saying, do you want to extend these clips, that when we place the dissolve here, that the dissolve would push those two clips apart and add extra material. But really what it's saying is, do you want to extend the clip that was on the right back in to the clip that was on the left? And the clip that's on the left, you want to extend it into the next clip. And so for normal editing, it's good to have that checked, even though that's a little confusing there. So all of the rest, I think, are pretty solid. Over here, for my personal preference on the way I like to edit, by default, I like to have the sync mode off and the ripple mode off. And I prefer to follow the overwrite method of editing. That is, if I should replace this clip on the timeline and put it, say, right here, it is going to overwrite the material that's there. If we have it set, and you can change the setting also over here, let's undo that. You can also make this change here to toggle in between the insert and overwrite mode. You don't have to necessarily have it set up here. When you have it set up in the settings, that's just how it's supposed to do by default. But now we are in the insert mode by toggling here. Let's see what happens when we drag this clip down now. It's going to push everything down the timeline. And so if you're brand new to editing, I think you'll find it easier to learn how to edit videos if you're doing the overwrite method. It kind of follows more of the Adobe Premiere Pro approach to video editing, whereas the insert method, I believe, is kind of following more of an Avid approach to editing. But there will be times when you'll find it helpful, like say you're making some revisions to a project, the client needs a few changes and you need to be able to add some extra material. Well, you might find it helpful to occasionally go into the insert mode and be able to, with the sync mode on and the ripple effect mode on, be able to insert material and push everything down the timeline. But when you're doing an edit from scratch, I believe that you will find it is a little bit easier to understand the concept of nonlinear editing if you are in the overwrite mode. And that's the way I like to have it set by default in settings. So in the overwrite mode, now in the waveform, I think we already pointed this out in a previous tutorial, there are two types of ways that Edius can display the waveform of audio clips. You'll see the waveform down here represented in these audio clips. And by default, Edius has chosen to ship with the linear mode, and we saw how that waveform was very small and almost difficult to see. So I prefer to have this changed and set to log files. All right, if you've made any changes, hit apply. All right, the user interface. Here is where you can set up some defaults about the way your information is going to be displayed in the various windows. Whether it's the bin window, what type of information you're interested in displaying as you look at your media, or the way that your timeline appears, the feedback that you're getting from the settings and the icons there. It's nice to know that you can make these changes here in user settings. A lot of these changes can also be made from inside each of these windows itself. However, here's something that I'm not sure can be changed from the timeline window or from the bin window itself, and that is what buttons or icons do you want to use as you're working with, say, the timeline. At the top here, you'll see that there are a number of icons that you can just point to and click to do certain functions. And if you are an icon-based person and you like to work with icons rather than keyboard shortcuts, you might want to take a close look at all of the icons that are available here by default and choose whether or not you're going to be using them. And if not, you could delete them and make space for other icons that you would find helpful as you do your edit. And I'm usually, every time I start a new version of Edius, I'm pretty comfortable with what they have set up here by default, but there is one that I like to add. So I'll add that now and you can get an idea of how you can add buttons. Let's go back to user settings, buttons. And if you want to add a new button to the top of your timeline window or the top of your bin window, let's show you how to do that by adding something to our timeline. Let's first of all choose what window we want to affect, and in my case I want to go down to the timeline window and I want to create a still image. Here we have a symbol or an icon of a little camera. Let's select that, and by selecting this move over button we see that the icon is now showing over in this list of current buttons that are appearing at the top of our timeline. So if there are any that are there that you're not using, you of course could, let's say we don't really need to use the icon for delete, we could move that back and save a little space here on our timeline window. And once you have everything set up the way that you want, you hit apply and we'll see that our changes are now reflected over here. We've got this create a still image, and what you can do then is just at any point in your timeline, just place your cursor where you would like to capture a still image, hit that button, and over in your bin window it shows up as a still image. And you can save that. You could place it at the end of your clip if you wanted to extend that still image out. You can do a lot of different things with a captured still image. So I like to have that as an easy icon to go to. Under control, we have the option to change the type of data and information that's going to display in our play monitor, our record monitor. For example, if we didn't necessarily need or want to see some of this information displayed, we could turn it off or on. I like to have this information from time to time, so I'm going to leave it on. We can change the size of it. If you're seeing impaired, you can have a larger display. Also with the buttons, for example, we could take away these play and record buttons. If it's not something that you're finding that useful, you can shut that off. Or if you're really liking that and you are seeing impaired, you could make those quite large. All right, keyboard shortcuts. We are going to record a separate tutorial on keyboard shortcuts, so we'll leave that for now. And window color. If you're not happy with the dull gray look of the user interface, here you have the opportunity to go in and change the colors to something that you think would be easier on your eyes. Let's try something like that. Hit apply, and we'll see that the whole interface changes color. I'm pretty happy with everything being set to 0, so I'm going to set that back. And let's take a look at source, automatic correction. I think we're okay by default there. All right, duration. You can choose when you place a still image from your bin into your timeline, how long that still image is going to be. And for the most part, 5 seconds is fairly standard and quite acceptable. However, if you are creating a timeline where you want every still clip to be 10 seconds on the timeline and you're dragging down 100 clips, rather than take the time to extend those manually to 10 seconds, it's good to know that you can go in here and change this to 10 seconds, and that way you can bring in 100 clips, drop them on the timeline in one swoop, and you've got them all the exact duration that you would like. Same with title graphics. You can set the duration for that. The V-mute. As far as I can tell, what this is referring to is that you can choose how many frames on each side of any given clip to have the audio muted on each side, so that as two clips are brought together, say in a narration track, you know how sometimes when you piece narration together, you'll get a little audio click as it moves from one edit to the next. And here you can choose apparently how many frames you want to mute in between two narration tracks or two video clips. Well, if that's what that's referring to, 1 second is 30 frames, and it seems odd that by default it would be at 1 second. Perhaps I've got this wrong, maybe it's referring to something else, but 1 second of duration seems like a whole lot. If it's doing what I think it's doing, it should be something more like 2 frames. So I'm going to set it to there for now and see what happens. Okay, the rubber band point. I've never quite figured out why Edius does this and has this audio rubber band thing set to 5. I'll show you what it's doing. Here, let's find an audio, a clip that has fairly high audio here. Let's say you wanted to bring the audio down on this clip so that we don't hear the ambient audio very, very much, or as much as it's showing right now. Using the Alt key, in theory, you would be able to bring the whole audio down of the entire clip. But watch what happens as we point to this clip and drag it down. We see that it is not taking the whole clip, which means if you want to bring down the audio of the entire clip, it's a 3-point operation. You have to lower it and then lower each end to match up. So I don't know if I'm missing something here as to why Edius would ship it default like this, but we don't like it to have to take the extra time and move the whole audio down, take 3 strokes instead of 1. And so I like to have this set to 0. And let's apply that and see how that has now changed. Now we can go to any clip, and with our Alt key held down, we can move the entire clip without that 5-frame rubber band remaining on each end. Partial transfer, not exactly sure what that's referring to, but it's never seemed to stop me before. Restore offline clip. If you're working with USB drives, portable drives in particular, there will be times when you start up a project and you discover that some of your clips are offline. They're no longer accessible, and it could be that your computer has assigned a different hard drive letter to the USB drive as you plug it in, and Edius is just not able to find it, and so you will have to point Edius in the right direction of where that media is now being stored. And that's another good reason why it's good to transfer the media that you're using to one drive where the project is being stored, and that way everything is held together. But still, there will be times when you start up a project and there is media missing, it's offline, and you have to tell Edius where to go to find it. And in order for this to work correctly, I have found that it works better if this is set to do nothing, and do nothing can be captured. Let's do nothing. For reasons I'm not sure, this allows you to find the digital media on your hard drives easier. When they're set the other way, it is looking for you to set up a tape deck, and when it can't find the tape deck, it's confused, and it doesn't move forward from that point, and you cannot reassign your media to the new settings, the new hard drive settings. All right, well, I believe that does it for our tutorial on user settings, and in our next tutorial we'll take a quick look at the other 3 here, and that will be a much shorter tutorial, I promise you.